And first, our topic is Arctic City and regional cooperation, with a panel coming from very good and beautiful Arctic cities around here. With this, I invite the chair of the panel, Professor Mika Meret, to take the floor, and you can introduce yourself and the panel and what you are going to say here. So, please, welcome.
Thank you, Marco. Wow, thank you, guys. Hello, hello, everybody. My job during this hour and a half will be to basically prevent you from napping. So I'll try to do a good job. And to do that, I will have the help of 3 mayors, 1 chair of town council, and the county governor of the Lapland region. My name is Mikko Mered. I'm professor of Arctic geoeconomics and geopolitics at ILERI in Paris, and I also teach here at Lapinamk. Basically, the idea of this panel is to come up with a vision regarding Arctic cities. What does it mean to be the mayor of an Arctic city? And what does it mean to be an Arctic city? That is the first question that our panel is going to answer to during the introductory speeches that they're going to do. And then we're going to have a question and answers time. And of course, I will rely on your participation to make this a fruitful discussion. Basically, what I've told them is try not to be politicians for an hour and a half. Let's just think all together as if we were having a nice fireside chat in some Levy hotel. You know what I mean? So let's try to have this discussion and to make it fruitful. So without further ado, I will call in my first speaker of the day, the mayor of Rovaniemi, Mr. Esko Lodvonen, for 5-6 minutes introductory speeches. You can give him a round of applause, you know what I mean?
Okay, thank you, Mika. Dear friends of the Arctic, it's a great pleasure to address you in this Arctic Spirit conference concerning the Arctic City. So the question was, how do you feel to lead the Arctic City, and actually what is the work in developing the Arctic City? Well, actually, first answer is it's a nice job, yeah. It's a nice job because nowadays Arctic issues and Arctic regions are on very good focus. So we are interested in part of the globe, and also we have been able to develop our businesses to the right direction, so that we are a growing city here in Rovaniemi, the leading Arctic tourist city. Globally, I can rank myself this, and because most of our visitors are foreigners, and the growth is over 20% a year, so we have challenges to keep up in the demand. Of course, challenges are also big ones. What we have to do, we have been able and forced to change our energy strategy, production of energy, but we have succeeded in that work, so that we are much more sustainable now than we used to be 10-20 years ago, and we don't use almost any oil anymore in warming the houses, and all our renewable energy raw material nowadays. And in this sense, we are looking forward also for the cooperation of other Arctic and northern cities, because we need to exchange best practices in different fields that city is responsible, and I'm happy for that we do have good cooperation with other cities, and we are in that sense going very fast forward, also together with universities. So we collect the knowledge, the know-how from science, and That's important for us to meet the goals which we were talking yesterday very much about the sustainable development goals of UN. So I think we are also one of the key players in that field as Arctic cities. So maybe with these words, I once more thank for this opportunity to address you and are waiting for interesting the panel to be followed. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lodvonen. Please join me on the sofa. So I tend to think that Arctic cities are most likely small scale and rural, but now we're going to hear from the mayor of a city that for some people is not really Arctic, but actually it doesn't really matter. What really matters is that it's not a small scale city at all, and yet it's northern. So I'm going to welcome now Päivi Laijala, the mayor of Oulu, for her introductory speeches.
Hello for everybody. First of all, I would like to thank Mayor Lodvonen and Arctic Spirit for inviting me to take part in this Arctic City season. Let me tell you a few words about my city. Oulu, with over 200,000 citizens, in the fifth largest city in Finland and the fastest growing region in Arctic Europe. Oulu has more than 400 years history of international cooperation and education. Today, Oulu is a city of 2 universities with one of the youngest population in Europe. Globally, Oulu is known as an international center of ICT and digitalization. I am proud to say that Oulu has both competence and capacity to continue Arctic cooperation that promotes northern sustainable growth and well-being. Therefore, our position, role and responsibility as an Arctic city are the main starting points in our values, vision and strategy. I share that view that networks and communication between different governmental levels is important in order to have sustainable development in the Arctic. We are willing to contribute in the Arctic policy making at all levels of governance. European Commission organized a wild stakeholders consultation this year to shape their Arctic policy implementation. Last June, Oulu has pleasure to host EU high-level Arctic event as a part of the process. Result of this participative process will be published soon. Finland's chairmanship of the Arctic Council has brought this work very close to us too. At the end of October, we had the pleasure of hosting senior Arctic councillors in Oulu. I believe that cross-border partnerships will improve our ability to benefit from each other's strengths. Collaboration across the cities and region is our aim within the Arctic Europe. There are many types of Arctic with different needs, one of the natural and very few people, and one with developed cities, universities, and the world's smartest industries. In terms of Arctic region, we see ourselves being a part of the Europe High North and Barents region. The Barents area, unique in Arctic in being a relatively densely populated area with well-developed industry and infrastructure. I would see the urbanization as a fact we need to recognize in the Arctic policy making. Arctic university cities together have great capacity to develop greener and smarter solutions for the Arctic and globally. That would also bring added value for economic and job creation too. All in all, it is very important that any Arctic future is created with strong and collaborative northern leaderships and community participation, also on international level. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria Leila. So we're now going to move to another Arctic city that has a lot to care about when it comes to climate change. It's the city of Tromsø. The city of Tromsø maybe can be seen as a very vulnerable city with regards to sea level rise, for example. So they're very, very concerned about climate change, and of course they really want to work on these SDGs. So to hear more about it, we're going to hear from the mayor of Tromsø, Kristin Roimo, for 5-6 minutes.
Thank you so much. And
don't forget a round of applause.
Thank you. Now, there are some sounds here, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. It's an honor for me to speak here at the conference. And first, I would like to thank you, Rovaniemi and Arctic Spirit, for giving the very high attention to the local level questions. Because this is the thing. Arctic now there is an increased attention to the Arctic at a level that we have never seen before, ever. So Tromsø has gone from being a city very far from almost everything else but ourselves, to being a center and a city that so many people are interested in learning to know and to visit. And it is not only Tromsø, because the development of the Arctic these days are actually characterized by heavy capital interests for aiming for natural resources on one hand, environmental movements that are aiming for the protection and the actually, I don't know the English word, but under the
framework?
Yeah, no, the protection umbrella of the cheese is a Norwegian word. To protect the Arctic areas because the Arctic areas are so vulnerable. On the other hand, on the third hand, nations that is positioning themselves when it comes to the Arctic issues that lies ahead of us. And not only ahead of us, it's actually right here, right now. And that gives us a lot of opportunities, but it makes the Arctic societies very vulnerable as we speak, because the Arctic societies itself, we are not normally a part of the international debate and placed around the decision-making table. Of course, this is a fact with a lot of I mean, we have the Sami people and the indigenous people's presence, but local level is not present in these decision-making rooms. We are not present when it comes to businesses, internationally, multinationally businesses, who are aiming for the Arctic areas that is now available as it has never been before. And of course, this is what we are facing at the local level. And just give me a hand when I have used, when I have 30 seconds left. At the local level, municipality of Tromsø, we know for a fact that there is a significant chance that the temperature will increase somewhere between 7 and 15 degrees within the next 30, 40 years. And this is not a fact that we are talking about only when we occasionally come to the conferences. This is also a fact that a lot of people, if not a majority, so then a significant amount of people at the local level knows. And we know that we are responsible as one of several parties responsible. We know that there is a chance that we can make efforts to reduce our vulnerability. I mean, to reduce the chance that the changes will be as severe as that. We know also we are in the need to create a legitimacy amongst our societies in order to make the changes on the concrete level at home. This is not an easy task. It's very serious. And it's hard because we live in a democracy, and every step of the way needs people to change their behavior, their attitudes. I need, at this point, I live in a city who used to be dependent on subsidies, heavy subsidies from national level. 1 minute, 30 seconds?
Whatever.
10 seconds.
Whatever.
Okay. Now we see prosperity at a level that we have never seen before in history. There is no unemployment at all. There is a lack of labor force. But still, the changes that we need to put into action, local action, is very hard and also vulnerable, because we need people, 75,000 people at this point, plus the students, so then it's 90,000, those are the easiest ones, to change. And I'm not a dictator, so I need people to believe what I say. And it's not easy. There are 9 political parties in my municipality. We might succeed. I'm going to stop now. Thank you for your attention. I will come back to the rest.
Don't worry, we'll get back to it later. I saw you were really dynamic and you wanted to convey the message, and I think the message is conveyed. Don't worry about that.
Thank you.
We'll get back to it. Come on, a round of applause for Mayor Tromsø. So in 2004-2005, there was a competition between 2 cities in the Arctic to welcome the Arctic Council Secretariat. It was basically Tromsø and it was Akureyri. So we've heard from the winning city, of course, and now we're going to hear from the losing city, but which is doing well regardless, with Mathias Ronvaldsson, who's chair of the town council of Akureyri in Iceland. So again, 6 minutes, and if you go over, but your message is very interesting, it doesn't matter. Don't worry.
6.5.
Yeah, 6.5. Yeah.
So,
it's because I said you lost, that's why.
I'm a loser, so I will start. So thank you for the invitation, Mayor of Rovaniemi, and thank you for a passionate speech, Mayor of Tromsø. What does it mean to be a politician or a mayor in a city like Akureyri?
So I will read my speech. I hope it will not take a very long time. Akureyri is a municipality located in northern Iceland with about 20,000 inhabitants. We have about 4,000 people in the university and the college in our city. It's by far the largest municipality outside of the capital area in Iceland, and sometimes referred to as the capital of the north. The islands of Hrísey and Grímsey are a part of the municipality. Geographically, islands and the town of Akureyri are the part of the Arctic region, and the island of Grímsey has the Arctic Circle running straight through it. I guess the people of Akureyri don't consider themselves as the Arctic citizens, but the local government in Akureyri has though decided some 20 years ago to put the emphasis on Arctic cooperation. The main reason was establishment of the Stephenson Arctic Institute in Akureyri. This was the foundation for further interest in establishing Arctic institution in Akureyri, leading to the fact that Akureyri has become a center for Arctic research institutes, activities and events in Iceland. This has been officially established by the Icelandic government, and we now host a great number of diverse conferences, workshops and lectures on Arctic issues. And just to give you an example, I can mention that 2 of the Arctic Council secretaries are located in Akureyri. CAF, Conservation of Arctic Flora and Fauna, and PAM, Protection of Arctic Marine Environment, not to forget the Secretariat for the Non-Governmental International Arctic Science Committee and the Icelandic Arctic Cooperation Network. The local government in Akureyri is active in the Arctic discussion because we believe that the voices of the people matter in this contest. In my opinion, it's important for municipalities in the Arctic area to take part in the Arctic cooperation and Arctic discussion, with the interest of the inhabitants as the main focus. The discussion should not be done by government and business alone. And I would like to, there was a, I can't remember the name, it was a parliament member from the Lahti government, no, from the Sami. She said something like that, nothing about us without us. I think that about the Arctic, there should be nothing done there without the mayors of the cities or without the governments which infect us. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Matthias. Nothing about us without us. That's for sure maybe the line of the week from Tina Aelo. Mika Riipi is next, last but not least, as they say, best for the last. Or maybe not, we'll see. He's the county governor of the Lapland Region Council. You all know him. And 6 minutes and a half to reflect on all that's been said already and provide your vision of how's it like to be a subnational Arctic actor.
Thank you, honorable moderator, dear friends. First, I must start this with a confession. And the confession goes that I'm actually quite typical Finnish man. In many ways, but what I mean here is that I didn't read the instructions. So I didn't know that I had to answer to a certain question. But if the question was that how did I feel just right now as a governor of Lapland, I must say that I feel fantastic. Because just right now I couldn't imagine the more interesting job in the whole world than being a governor of Lapland. But to the team, I think that the topic is very important, and I want to take this opportunity to also to thank the organizers to give the regions and cities the voice. I'm representing here as the regional level, but the regions and the cities and the municipalities, we all are in the same boat when we discuss about our role in the Arctic. The topic is very hot because everybody just right now is talking about the solutions. There are actually over, I read somewhere that there are over 80 different annual Arctic conferences around the world. And in every conference, there's a lot of talks about the problems that we have here in the Arctic. There are a lot of talks and common understanding that we recognize the problems, but when it comes to the solutions, to concrete, pragmatic solutions, none of these 80 conferences offer much. And what I'm claiming is that the key to have those solutions actually lies with the regions and cities and municipalities of the Arctic. We all know that the history of the Arctic cooperation, it has been very successful. We know that it's out of geopolitics. We know that within it we have recognized those problems globally, what relies in Arctic, and we also have had quite successful global initiatives in order to correct those challenges. But at the same time, that we must understand that the successful history of Arctic cooperation is the success of a national cooperation, not the regional level or the municipal level. And if you read, for example, the Arctic Council's agenda or different programs, you won't find regions or cities in those papers. You just won't find them. But I believe that actually just right now is a correct time to correct this. And for example, if you think about the Arctic Council table, as it was mentioned by the mayor of Tromsø, there aren't no city or regional representatives. If some country's minister is kind, it might invite the representatives of the regions to sit down not in the table, but in the side of the table, to listen what the wise civil servants or politicians are talking. But I believe that we should be now doing things that we get into those tables. And in order to do that, I believe that we sincerely we have to strengthen the cooperation between the regions. That's the key element. Strengthen the cooperation between the Arctic cities. That's the only way that we can make us to be heard better. And that's the only way that we can create an arena for us, for regions and cities, to offer our practical solutions. Because it's not a question that we don't have solutions. Actually, we do have them. But they are not now in the table that the decisions are made. But dear moderator, I believe that I stop here, and when we come to discussion about that, how can we be here more, that the sofa would be the better place.
Thank you, Mr. County Governor. A round of applause for Mika Riipi. And thank you for all of you for all this great material for our discussion. And I will start off by what you all mentioned is cooperation, of course, between Arctic cities. And what is very interesting is that at this table we have two gentlemen who actually represent either municipalities or region that sit in the Northern Forum, which is the diplomatic forum for subnational actors. That is the region of Lapland, and that is the municipality of Akureyri. So can you tell us a bit more about your experience of Arctic or the Arctic subnational cooperation as part of the Northern Forum, which is an observer and only an observer in the Arctic Council?
Maybe I should start. Well, if I could describe it shortly, I think that both in the regional level, via the Northern Forum, mainly nowadays, and what I've heard between the Arctic cities and the mayors of the cities, we are actually living the time that this kind of collaboration, discussions, it's starting to rise again. And Esko and others may tell a little bit more about the Arctic cities, but if we think about the Northern Forum, we all know that it was a strong player 15, 20 years ago, in that time. But within the years, I believe that its role has been diminished. And in order to have it again as an recognized player in the Arctic stakeholders forum, it needs to be renewed. Almost everything it needs to be renewed. The strategy, the ways to work, goals, priorities, everything. And that's exactly what Lapland and also Akureyri, we are very highly committed to do. And we've started this kind of process actually just right now. And next week, there was planned to be the next General Assembly of a Northern Forum in Krasnoyarsk, but due to the governor change, it's now going to be in the beginning of February. So that's the place that we are going to get the new start for the Northern Forum.
All right, so that's a good message for Mikhail Pogodayev, who may be watching us online. Matthias, what's your experience with the Northern Forum?
Actually, I have not been in the Nordic Forum. Our mayor has been our representatives there, and I can relate to that. The governor is saying that they are talking about renewing all the major points and what is the major focus and how are they going to do it. I think the changes now. The cities are starting to talk more to each other, and I think the municipalities and the government are getting more involved in the Arctic process and are really concerned about what is going on. So this is not this is a whole another ball game, or what we say 15 years ago versus now. So people are talking more together, and I think the Northern Forum is, they are making changes and they are working on it.
It's a very interesting topic for us in political science or in geopolitics, because we are at the heart of this discussion between should the Arctic be a field of internationalism or should it be a field of interregionalism? And 20 years ago, when the Arctic Council was founded in 1996, well, the Northern Forum already existed since it was created in 93, and we saw that the Arctic Council took off when the Northern Forum was kind of put down. And now we're seeing this re-emergence of interregionalism. There's the Northern Forum, but there's also this new Arctic Mayor Forum, which is emerging. For you, mayors, what do you think of all this and this Arctic City Cooperation? Should it be done at the city level, at the regional levels? How do you see this interregionalism going?
I think that we don't have all the answers at this point, but I think the most important thing is that we are digging into the questions and reflecting on what are our needs at this point. And this is what I see. There is a very high need for cooperation across the layers of decision making. That means the local, the regional, the national and the international. Because all these layers at one point or several points, they are interconnected, and also we depend. I mean the Earth, the future depends on that we take the actions that are intertwined and we work on each other's goals. So that means there are some goals that we need to own together, and we need a partnership across the layers that is not there today. This is my overall overview.
All right. Mr. Urbanen?
Maybe it's my,
No. Okay.
my advantage or disadvantage that I've been involved in all these processes in my career. I was in the provincial government office in the beginning of the 90s when we established Northern Forum, and so together with the governor we developed the role of Lapland in that organization. Then I was the first regional person to establish the Barents Corporation, and then as a former county governor I was leading these cross-border programs, EU programs here, and I was also establishing the Northern Sparsely Populated Areas Network, and now as a mayor I'm a member in this Arctic Mayors network. So I followed all these, and also North Carolina Council is one of those where I've been working over 30 years. So things change, world changes, and the organization have to change, priorities change, and what are the responsibilities of different levels? So regional level has a certain another role in this international cooperation than the cities. We are much more on the grassroots level, so we make the practical decision every day how the city is developing, and what is the energy policy, how we shape it, and how we try to implement prepare the infrastructure and so on. And on the regional level they are responsible for overall planning and also financing. So there's, for everyone is a role. But as I wrote the comment to the Arctic yearbook just last year's yearbook of the role of the cities and regions in the Arctic Council work, and I of course said that it's not enough. It's not enough because, but I was fortunate to be in the Finnish delegation in Fairbanks, for example, to represent the local level. So this is like Kirstin also was there, and this occasion we had a Arctic mayors meeting and plans for the future steps, and now we are going forward in Tromsø in the Frontiers conference next January. So changes have to be done, and new structures are emerging, and we had to adapt to this. So this is the moving train in a way.
Sure. Mayor Laila, you wanted to add something to that?
Yes, I have been in Oulu and only 1 year, nearby 1 year, and before that I was 3 years in the finance of ministerial in state, and before that 15 years about many kinds of municipalities in Finland. And so it is necessary to do cooperation in every levels, and now we will have a very big new reform, because in Finland we try to do regions, and so it's new time, and so it means that in municipalities it's necessary that we do cooperation, because it will be so big reform, and so as you understand what I mean, and it's mean so big different and big questions for municipalities, and that is a example why we must do cooperation. And of course, at the same time, it is necessary that we do cooperation with companies, especially in municipalities.
Oh, I'm going to that in my next question. That's great.
Because we need resource and finance to facilitate cross borders, many kind of companies in municipalities.
Major Roimo, you wanted to add something, and maybe then we move on to the next question.
We are just moving, so you can just move.
Okay, let's move. Yeah, because actually I was going into that because we see that many cities in the Arctic, many territories are competing for the same resources. And by resources, I mean A, the workforce, B, experts, educators, and so on. But they're also competing for the same investors' risk money. So at the end of the day, that's my question. Can you really build a cooperation on all aspects of municipal levels and on municipal policy and regional policy, or this competition will hamper your efforts? What do you think? Go on.
I think that
it's a fireside chat.
Yes. So this is my reflections are that at the moment when we strengthen the east-west dimension of all kinds of infrastructure and strengthen the contacts, physical, digital, the connectivity between societies in the Arctic, we will be stronger, we will become stronger. Because the power structure, this is something common, the power structure in the north are going south-north these days. I mean, Sweden, for instance, is more eager to build, and also Finland, a railway, northern parts of the country. Norway is not. So for instance, I depend on the east-west railway from Tromsø if there is going to come. This is what I suppose. So I think that. And also the investments. I mean, there is a lack of capital. I mean, there is a lack of money, investments money in the north. This is also something that we share. So I think that if we are to become a part of the solution and the change in the Arctic, we need to speak together, understand that we share some common interests, opportunities and challenges, and we need to demand of our national governments that they pay this greater attention to the northern societies, because the changes in the Arctic needs to be the societies needs to be a core part of the solutions in the Arctic, and they need to pay attention and also to pay money. I mean, we need to use some of the capital that we have nationally in the north.
And this is something that we hear in Alaska vis-a-vis Washington D.C.
And it's
Canada.
An old story, so it's not a new story. But now it's more. It's even more important than ever before because changes are going to be so big.
Yeah, but from a geopolitical perspective, there are alliances that are very interesting. For example, when we talk about the Northern Sea Route, in the European part of the Northern Sea Route, we see that in Russia there's a competition between Murmansk and Arkhangelsk in order to be the port in Western Russia for this Northern Sea Route. And you see that there are alliances moving on. So the Belkomor project is financed by some Chinese. We see that in Murmansk it's more going to be the South Koreans that are coming in. So basically all these alliances, they are being played not at national level but at the local and municipal level. So basically, should you all speak as one, and can you all speak as one, or should there be some kind of groups here and there, for example in the Barents region, for example in some part of the Russian Arctic, some part of Canada, some connection between Greenlandic municipalities and Nunavut municipalities? Like, how do you see this organization of the cooperation?
Yes and no, I would say.
That's what I wanted.
Because the question that you originally asked was actually a very good question. Because I see the competition, and I can see all those aspects of this kind of thinking. And in some way, I believe that it's quite natural. It happens in personal level. I compete with some other people, and municipalities compete in some other level, national level. We know the geopolitical competition. So it's something that we can't get rid of forever, and we shouldn't. because competing in a certain way can be a good. But actually the main thing is that in a certain level, understanding that we have a sort of a competitive relation to each other, we have to do cooperation and collaboration in order to have those higher goals. And that means that we have to accept that, for example, the city of Rovaniemi can be the capital of the capital of the tourism and Santa Claus and design, and the Oulu not to compete with the Arctic status with Rovaniemi. Oulu can be the capital of Arctic social and healthcare innovations, and Tromsø can be capital of something, and Akureyri something, and that goes also for the regions. And that level we must have this kind of a cooperation, collaboration, and continuous discussion, so that we don't compete as ourselves to death.
Sure. I think that situation has been changing quite a lot during last years, because in previous years we fighted for the scarce resources and now we have lots of potential to share together. So I don't see that for the future need to compete too much. Of course, we have to specialize each one to something, because we cannot be good in everything. So if Oulu is good in certain issues, Tromsø in certain, Akureyri in certain, Rovaniemi in certain issues, so together we are strong. And I think this picture has been changing, and of course we lack always. We can say that we lack capital, but nowadays also international financing is coming much strongly to as a possibility, both European and other financing also. So there are mechanisms to take care of that, but of course when we are talking about very huge projects, so then we have to rely on national states also, so that they support us, because otherwise of course we can not go further. But I see that we have room here for everyone to act, and the changes are so big, and potentials are so big, so that we are not going to compete too strongly with each other. We have other global areas to be competed with.
But that's very interesting, because there's an old Chinese saying that says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So basically, do you know where you're going and what your strengths and your identities are? All of you?
I think that we are very aware of our strengths and our identities, even though I think at some points some people tend to believe that there is a pie that you need to cut slices of, and then you share the pie. So the question is there a possibility that the pie could get even bigger? So we are at the junction now, and in my opinion we need to choose, and I would be surprised if not everyone was agreeing with me. We need to choose the bigger pie. And that is not to exploit. This is to be able to do the changes that leads us into the direction of the sustainable development, also the sustainable economy that goes hand in hand with the sustainable ecology. So doing all these things at the same time that we are facing the changes that we are is actually it's actually a very big task. One of the things that I think is going to make societies stronger in the future is our ability and understanding of the fact that we need to share. So sharing, I mean, the new economy is going to be the sharing economy. We're facing new paradigms on so many levels. So sharing with each other and making sure that I know the Rovaniemi issues, Oulu issues, the Akureyri issues, the Lapland issues, all the issues, as well as, because also Arctic is not one thing. The Arctic is so divided. It's so different. The challenges of Tromsø is so different from the challenges of the small villages in the northern parts of Canada, for instance, where you need to pay maybe $4,000 US to take your own person by airplane to the closest city where you are going to deliver your child, and you need to stay there for weeks because there is no doctor up there. So I mean, this is not the challenge that we have in Tromsø.
That's for
and
sure.
it's very serious.
And that's a message that is not really getting across. And I see that with my students, but I see that also in the media.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not getting that there are not one Arctic, but many Arctics.
Yes.
And we have to, of course, foster that discussion. Laila, what's your take on this?
First, I would like to say that my colleagues, they speak so very well, and what is the big problem. Or together we may identify main drivers and drivers for growing and build on them. And we bring together innovation ecosystem, in example in Oulu, and with business ecosystem, and also cross-border to create common competence and synergy together. And that is necessary to do.
Yeah. And for example, in Akureyri, how do you do this?
How do you do what?
Well, how do you develop these synergies, both at the local level and international level? Because there's a concept of onshore insularity, and some people could say that Akureyri is in a situation of onshore insularity, meaning that you have ice or long distances on land between you and the next big economic center. So you're not an island, but you're an island. You're not geographically an island, but economically you're one. So how do you manage to get off of this situation and develop partnerships outside of your own vicinity in Iceland?
I think it's I don't know what's the easiest way to answer this, but I think the main purpose, the Scandinavian countries, we are combined. We have threats and we stick together. And I think we have been very active in the international community and connecting the East and the West and the European and Scandinavian countries. And when I was so caught up in my own thoughts about the talk here about the environment, a sustainable future, because when you are talking about competition, I was thinking about the competition is we are not competing which is going to get the biggest piece. I think if this is the main interest in my head is the environment as a sustainable future for this region. And how we can work together, and how we can, where we have done good things, how we can get it into other communities. Like we have a zero carbon-free city. So Akureyri is there, and about the competition of, I think and on international level, I think that the Scandinavians and we here, we should stick together. So.
Yeah, sure, and that leads me to my next question, actually. I wrote, when you build or develop a city, you remove natural free lands and turn them into urban built lands, so you take a toll on nature for the sake of organizing human life and exchanges better. So that's pretty obvious. But so said differently, urbanization costs a lot of resources, and it costs a lot of natural capital, and we talked about natural capital this morning. So basically, how do you think, that's building upon your comment, Matthias, how can we reconcile urbanization on the one hand, which takes its nature capital toll, and economic development? How do we reconcile these two?
Well, We have done this planning in Lapland a long time, where we plan how we use land for different purposes. So, and we really have many elements to adjust together. So there is, of course, businesses in forest business, in mining business, in tourism. We have protected areas. We have a Sami area, and so on and so forth. So we have found solutions. Might take a bit time, but when I think in many cases the discussions on the higher level, so they don't find the concrete solutions what Mika was talking about. They think that we haven't done those solutions, but we have done them already. So that this is a problem in this multi-level cooperation. So that in different level we think about differently, and we have different information, and that's what should be changed, so that we can really show that there are solutions if we just sit together, we analyze the situation, and what is of course important for our side is a qualified people here. So then we come to the educational issues also, and I think of course urbanization show that people are concentrating to certain poles. I think we all three cities are growing cities, so we have a better situation than the rural municipalities in our areas. But what we are going to face is the lack of qualified people, workers in our businesses, and so that's the biggest issue, and that has of course good to discuss with urbanization and
sure. Attractivity is definitely key. Mika Riipi.
I'd like to go back to the yesterday and our foreign minister's speech. I believe that he told somehow that like that we must use the economy as a tool for sustainable development in the Arctic, and that's actually the key. We must not see urbanization or economical growth as a problem, but as a part of solving those problems. And if you think about all this, what's happening here in the Arctic, it creates a huge potential for new businesses, for new sustainable businesses. If you think about Lapland, the circular economy cluster, new sustainable drilling technique companies, self-sufficient villages possibly in the future. There are a lot of new potential, but it's a question that how we see it. Do we put them against the sustainable development and urbanization and economical development, or do we see it as an whole and going to the same direction? And that's the key, I think.
I would agree with that. Would you? I'm sure you would.
Nowadays we have a very, very important time, as Esak told to us what kind of plans we have. Example, in Oulu we done budget to the next year, and at the same time we do strategy of city, and so it's very important that we think that what is important to us and how much money we have and so on. For example, always investing in smart and sustainable city development through integrated urban planning and smart and high quality built infrastructure, energy efficiency Relations and access to digital service are among key themes in planning. That kind of questions we must think about our future.
Yeah, this is something we see in Tromsø, we see in Bodø, we see in Nuuk, but we don't see that happening, for example, in many parts of Russia or in Alaska, for example. So is there a model, is there an endogenous, not indigenous, but endogenous growth model that you've developed here in this part of the Arctic, and especially in Tromsø, Bodø, that could be applied elsewhere, like a model?
Yes, I think so. I think that the future ahead of us when it comes to the technology and the possibility of using technology for the sustainable change of the society and the economy is one of the keys for the solutions for the future. That means both for the cities and for the rural areas. I am not in doubt of that. But of course that is, and it's complex. You need education. You need to be able to operate the new technology. You need, not least, and this is one of our advantages in the Arctic, you need to combine the traditional knowledge that is in our very spine with the modern technology when it comes to safety and the ways of moving around the non-fossil,
and so on.
all those things. And I would like to add one more point, and that is, of course, there is a conflict that we feel very close when it comes to the urbanization versus the rural areas of our regions. For instance, in Tromsø, so many people coming to our city want to live because of all the possibilities and options that are in a city. And the urbanization of the world, I would be surprised if this force, it's one of the big drivers, if it actually goes backwards. So there is a tendency, people seek into the cities. We believe that within 2050 something, 75% of the peoples of the world will be living in the cities.
More than 900 million people will get into cities. Yeah.
Most probably less people will live in the rural areas. And in Norway, northern part of Norway these days, there is a big challenge when it comes to taking care of the fish resources that comes to the shore, for instance. And the normal thing is that the rural areas take care of the fish. But now there is not enough people to work in the industry, in the fishing industry, in the rural areas. That means we are importing people to be able to take the fish to this community. And it's very, these communities are they are small, and they need the people to come, the fish to come. They need their elders to be taken care of. They need certain amount of activity.
Absolutely.
Just to not to die. It's severe.
Exactly,
crucial.
and a good example of that, for example, is Greenland, where we see the capital Nuuk attracting so many kids that actually small cities have a really hard time keeping up to speed. This is something that we see all across the Arctic, maybe less in some parts of Russia or some parts of Alaska, but we see that's a trend indeed. And that takes me to another question on systems analysis and having a holistic approach to urban development. What we've seen in many cities in the Arctic that have been growing by double digits per annum in demographics in the past 10 years, we've seen in those cities that they were reacting to this trend, meaning that this trend was happening and the kids, the talents were moving in from the rural areas to the cities, and they had to respond and build some houses very quickly, build new neighborhoods very quickly. And we've seen some other cities like Reykjavik, for example, where there's been an anticipation of this trend. So basically, how do you see yourself between this responding to the trends as they go, or anticipating them with a holistic and systemic approach? Where do you stand between these two in your respective cities or territories?
Well, I think when we think about Lapland, so we have quite big project and in the whole Lapland. So there's mining openings coming, and what has changed is that we make a society around the mine. Yeah. So now when the mines are opened in from 200 kilometers from here, so quite many of those workers live in Rovaniemi, and quite many of the companies that serve the mining business are located here. So it's not, in the future, it's not spread in that sense, but it's also that kind of concentration will happen. And of course, it's on the longer term, it's a very wise decision, because we have seen when the mining stops and ends, so then the local society is not there anymore. So there are only empty houses, and that's
we've seen that in Gällivare, for example, in Swedish Lapland. Like we've seen that happening. Mayor Laila?
I think so that especially in Oulu we must to give choices to the young people, because of course we have a university and many kind of schools and so on, and we should understood better the expansions, and we need ask young what would make them this choice to Arctic or Oulu as their partner in life. Yeah. And it is necessary because they are our future, and would they like to live in Oulu or Arctic area, and what kind of city they want. And there's these very big questions. We do hard work with that kind of questions nowadays.
Absolutely, and it's a question I know perfectly, since my wife doesn't want us to live in the Arctic. Yeah. She's very happy with being in Paris, you know what I mean? So that we see this issue happening even personally. I totally feel it. Matthias, you wanted to jump in?
Yes, I think it's like the area of Akureyri. It's the only within alternative to the capital area, because we have such wide infrastructure. We have a university, we have a university hospital, we have a lot of government institutes, and we have also a very cultural city, and we have 40 restaurants, and we have
2 Arctic Council working groups.
Yeah, we have a lot of and very diverse community. And because people who get higher education, they are not going to, they don't get the same effect going to a very small town of 1,000 or 1,500 people, because they need to seek the job which is in their expertise. And at Akureyri is the alternative to the capital area. We have about 30 sports clubs. We have everything except a very efficient international flights. We have some this week and some the next month and so on. But that's the main disadvantage of the capital area. We don't have direct flights. When we ask the people, which do you miss the most, they say, we would like to be able to go into direct flights all over to Europe, like from Keflavik. So that's that. But Akureyri is throwing a lot of people to it, and we are building like there's no tomorrow. And we are planning a big number of areas, and we are looking brightly to the future, because people would like to live in an environment where it's free buses, almost a carbon-free city, and everything you can imagine. So
at first you were responding to this trend, and now you're expanding on it and anticipating the continuation of the trend. And
yeah. Like the university has about 2,000 participants, and we have about almost 2,000 participants in the college also. And there are people coming all over from and these people who get their degrees from the university, they take, most of them take about 60 to 80%. They take jobs in the rural areas all around the country. They don't go to the capital.
Yeah.
You wanted to jump in?
Yeah, because the main issue is that it's impossible to predict the future. And that makes this job hard, or living hard, or easy. But in Lapland, we've been doing for past 4 years in the regional level, in our strategic planning, we've been using a method of a phenomenal approach. And that means that we try to analyze the certain megatrends that we should be reacting, and then deciding how to ride with these megatrends. And that's very interesting approach. But what I'm talking about is that the unpredictability is so enhanced that we must be able to change our strategies day by day. For example, this urbanization and robotization, digitalization. I predict that within 20 years there will be fully automated mines. So there will be a mine somewhere in Lapland, and it will be operated from here, from Rovaniemi. Does that mean that all the people live in Rovaniemi? Because in the same time, the digitalization does not change you to live in the city. You can live more freely, more cheaply. Maybe the logistics are totally different, so you can live everywhere. So we can't exactly predict, but we must live at the moment and analyze all the time what we should be doing in order to compete.
And it's true in mining, it's also true in shipping, when we see companies like Viking trying to have this autonomous, or at least remote driven ships all across the Arctic. It's fascinating. But one way to anticipate what's going to happen in the future, and we have 15 minutes left, is the youth, calling the youth. What do you think? What do you want to do? What would attract you? What would repulse you? And basically on Monday we had this Arctic Youth Forum here in Rovaniemi, just before the Arctic Spirit conference. And the thing is, we'll see, we hear almost all the time the young people are not really invited to these 80 and so conferences on the Arctic. It happens, but not very often. So how much do you associate the youth in your different communities with your policy and with your anticipation?
Well, nowadays when we design certain city areas, like we have, let's say, we have now 6 different areas here in the planning process. So, for example, the university campus area is now will be replanned, and there we take into account the new trends, sharing economy, what Kristen was talking about, because we know that young people and students, they don't have maybe their own cars. They like more.
Sure. On Monday, transportation was the main issue on the future of Rovaniemi roundtable we had.
And they like bicycles and these kind of things. So they share things.
Sure.
Together, and of course ecological issues are important for young people. So in this campus area, we try to plan these kind of things, and they are in the process. They are sitting in the working groups, and then we hear what they are doing. And we have another residential area where we also are planning to build wooden houses, small gardens, and so on. And
all right, and that's coming from
the youth also. So these kind of examples we have in Rovaniemi.
It's very concrete. Do you have other concrete examples in Oulu?
Yes, of course. I tell that Oulu is a city of young people and students. An example, only last week we had a very experience of enchaining university students to give their ideas for planning of the university campus reform taking place in Oulu. And we will have 2 universities join to 1 campus area in the coming years. And so it is very important that we talk with our young people what kind of campus they would like, and what issues there must be, and what kind of service they would like, and what kind of traffic and so on. That is very, very important to us.
Same thing happens in Tromsø?
Yes, on different, I mean, within different groups of people, of course, and there are debates and reflections between generations. And the thing is, of course, never before has the distance between young people and old people been bigger than it is today when it comes to the sensibility of the future. So the question is, at one point I asked this question to a bunch of headmasters in Tromsø. When your task is to teach what you don't know to young people, what do you do?
You ask them.
I ask them. Just to stress them to reflect on the fact, because this is the thing. So we need, of course, in this situation, we need the young people to have the sense of the Arctic future as well. And I am very eager to tell people that you need to encourage the youth to go out, to travel, to learn the rest of the globe, and of course to come home. But more important than ever it is that young people who is going to take the decisions now in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, that they know the world and that the boundaries between people and regions are lower than they are today and were in the past. So I'm very sure that one of the solutions is that young people learn their own ownership of the Arctic, and that we actually
listen to it.
To it, but also use the possibilities to create a better understanding of the globe itself.
Quickly, Mayor Leila, then.
I must say that yesterday we have a panel for young people, and what happened? It was last panel in this Congress.
Guys.
And how many people was here? Only 10.
Yeah.
Only 10.
Oh my God, only young people.
And now we talk about it. Listen to young people.
Well, I'm young, you know.
I'm young.
I'll tell you more in my final question.
Really young.
Matthias, Mika, and then final question.
Yeah, we try to involve the young people. Their interest is we are trying to ask them about education and about activities after school, and we're trying to get them involved. When I was young, we just waited until the weekend to get drunk. So, but now 5% of Icelandic kids in the age of under age of 16 or 17 have started drinking. Only 5%. It was 42% 5 years ago. So we don't know, like the governor said, we don't know the future, but the young kids, they're very. My kids, when I ask them, what are you doing? I'm playing with my friends. There's nobody in the room.
Yep.
But their friends are all over the world, and
in Iceland, 92% of kids under 18 play an instrument or play sports. So really, this whole thing has enabled us to change the situation. Mika, and then final question.
Yeah, shortly, because I was so happy when you told that the young people should go away. And many times, especially here in the Arctic, we talk too much about that. How can we keep our youngs here? Before my career as a bureaucrat or public sector civil servant, I was working actually 4 years as a youth counselor. So one of my main messages is, and I say it always out loud, that raise your child to love their home region. And then push them away, because then they get back with so many different riches, and meanwhile make possible them to come back so that there's jobs and there are opportunities. And that's simple key.
All right, so moving on to the final question. Okay, guys, so in 2050, I'll be 62 years old. All right, so I'll still be here, and me and my partner and my children, we will live the Arctic that you will have contributed to create. So in your wildest dreams, how does the Arctic, or what does the Arctic look like in 2050? Let's start with you.
Well, that's a good question.
Wildest dreams, I said. Wildest.
Wildest dreams. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward anyway that there's still we have been able to preserve the good nature, fresh air here, good climate, because that's the basis for all activities and also attractiveness.
So fresh air and attractiveness.
Yeah.
All right, Leila.
In Finland, we have a few very big cities, and one of them is Rovaniemi and Oulu.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
All right.
Well, it's a big question, of course.
And you've got 30 seconds to answer
yeah,
it.
that is. We have a tolerant Arctic full of people who knows how to live their lives sustainable in all sense of the word.
Sounds good, Matthias.
I think it has to be clean and viable. So it has to be something that you feel very satisfied in. So we have to be on the edge, and we have to be connected also.
All right, Mika.
We sit here in Rovaniemi, which is middle of the world's largest, purest, cleanest, and wildest wilderness areas.
Beautiful. So, to finish this off, take a look at the screen behind you, and pick the one SDG of your choice, and explain to us in just 2 words what you are doing in making sure that your city becomes a champion of the SDG you've chosen. In 2 words each.
2 words.
Yeah, 2 words.
So, repeat the question. The last part of the question was.
So,
explain.
What do you do to make your city a champion of the SDG you have chosen?
Well,
You're ready.
Well, I chose number 4, quality education, and I'm supporting the education here very strongly.
All right,
I take it 9 industry, innovation, and infrastructure.
Number 11, the sustainable cities and the communities. This is the way of organizing ourselves.
Mr. Olvensson?
So we can't choose the other ones. No, I say 12. We are doing everything we can to protect and live with the environment.
County Governor?
I picked the number of Jari Kurri, 17, well, I'm sitting here and creating partnerships.
Well, indeed, we've created partnerships. Thank you so much for your attention, guys. Thank you so much for this great discussion.
Thank you.